You know what you're listening to?
Is that a trick question?
It's the I Still Love This Game podcast with your host, Matthew Damian.
He's an idiot. Don't listen to this. He's an idiot.
Hello and welcome to episode 91 of the I Still Love This Game podcast. Yes, that's right. We're down to single digits in the countdown to episode 100, which I'm sure is a huge talking point amongst all you diehard NBA fans. Look, I'm kidding. Just calm down, settle down. That was just a joke. But what is a major talking point is the Cavs' struggles without a Mr. LeBron James. In fact, I counted it, and since the season started, I've received 41 emails on this topic alone, which is probably going to be a higher number than the Lakers' victories this season. But that's another topic for another day. Today's topic is, can we judge a player's value based off of previous season victories to current regular season victories? Now, obviously, we're going to be beginning with LeBron and the Cavs in the current season. And I mentioned before 41 emails. Now, just for full transparency, they weren't 41 emails from 41 different users. Some of the users were basically goading me or begging me to respond to this. But the overall gist of all those emails was that because LeBron left the Cavs and they're now 1-10, that shows how great LeBron was because he was able to take this really bad team, a 1-10 team, to the NBA Finals. And I want to make this very clear. And as great as LeBron is on the offensive end, the reason why this team is playing so bad has very little to do with LeBron leaving directly in terms of just his talents. It has a lot to do with a bunch of differing factors. So I'm going to get right into this, and factor number one is the offensive scheme. And LeBron, last year, the offensive scheme for the Cavs was basically give him the ball. They made him point guard. If you remember back, this is when they had Isaiah Thomas. They just traded Kyrie Irving for Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and the Brooklyn Nets first round pick, unprotected, and because the Celtics owned that pick. And the offense ran through LeBron, and if you were open, you take the shot after he passes the ball to you. It was essentially, it was a great example of a quarterback, a running quarterback in the NBA, and you had no ground game whatsoever. You had no variation. It all went through the scrambling quarterback's hands. He would decide and dictate where the offense and how it would flow. And that is why no one outside of LeBron scored 15 points per game with the exception of Kevin Love. And in the playoffs, not even Kevin Love averaged 15 points per game. He was, however, 14.9 points per game. So if you want to argue that it was 15 points per game, whatever. Now, why is Kevin Love the exception here? He was the most versatile shooter on that team. And despite also having J.R. Smith and Korver, but let's be honest here, Korver only averaged 21 minutes per game at the age of 36. And J.R. Smith saw his minutes slashed to 28 minutes per game. He is also not the most consistent shooter in NBA history. When he gets going, he's one of the streakiest, and he'll make them from anywhere within half court. Beyond those two guys, well, really three guys, because we're including Kevin Love, obviously, who else was a consistent or a verified shooter on that team? And you're probably thinking, well, whose fault is that? It's not LeBron's fault that they're not deadly shooters, right? Well, that's true. But let's look at who was on that roster at some point last season. You had Derrick Rose, right? And he averaged less than 10 points per game. And yes, that's not MVP Derrick Rose. We know that. But it is the same guy that just dropped 50 points on the Timberwolves on Halloween. So he still has offensive skills. You had Isaiah Thomas. The mini Isaiah Thomas, not the real Isaiah Thomas, but still you have mini Isaiah Thomas, who was a top 5 MVP candidate the season prior. And we saw his point per game average nearly half. It was nearly cut in half from 27 points per game to 14 points per game. George Hill, Rodney Hood, Jordan Clarkson, they all saw their points per game drop. Whilst Wade's and Jay Crowder's, we saw their points per game climb once they were traded from Cleveland. The point that I'm making is these guys can score. They are capable of scoring. But just not the way that LeBron wants it and demands it. LeBron does not work to the strengths of his own teammates and ultimately hurts his team as they don't play to their potential on offense. I'm not even talking about defensively, but on offense. In short, the offense has to revolve around LeBron. Now, what this means is players such as Wiggins, such as Irving, such as Michael Beasley, going way back to Miami days when he was the number 2 pick in the NBA draft, and he was actually quite a talented scorer for the Miami Heat. They are often traded for pennies on the dollar for players that benefit LeBron's game. He does not get a pass for that because he puts the general manager or the ownership into a very dangerous predicament. Because LeBron is good when he's surrounded with those shooters. He is not good when he is not surrounded by shooters. And that is not a sign of a great player. I'm sorry, but it really isn't. Now, this does lead me into factor number 2. And when LeBron leaves, after the system has been completely overhauled for him and changed for him, this creates a huge vacuum. This is why the Lakers should be concerned, but I'll get to that in a minute. If the system is designed just for LeBron to essentially mask his flaws, i.e. the ability to catch and shoot and work away from the ball, that's what these guys have to do. Although they don't even get a chance to really work away from the ball, they are really told to stand outside and wait for the ball to come to them. And then he goes, and then he leaves. That team is no longer relevant. Let me ask you this. Would the Cavs be in a better position right now had they not dealt Kyrie Irving? And before you say, well, Kyrie Irving forced a trade, it's funny how selective memories only go back so far. And it's a photographic memory up until a point. I don't remember what happened beyond that. But it's also good that I'm here to jog those memories. Prior to that trade request, after the Cavs had just won their championship, LeBron publicly stated that he, quote-unquote, needed some playmakers, and privately pushed for the Cavs to trade Kyrie Irving for his cuddle buddy, Chris Paul. When Irving found this out, that's when he made his mind up that he wanted out. The trade deadline had already passed when he had found this out, so he played out the rest of the season. But that's what happened. Now, was it inevitable? Could Irving have still wanted out regardless? I mean, I guess it's possible, but there's no way of proving that. So that theory has virtually no weight to it. Factor number 3. Kevin Love has been injured for 7 games. He has only played in 3.5 games, and the only other half he left due to his injury. This is kind of significant because this is a guy they wanted to run the offense through, and he's now unavailable. Factor number 4. The veterans are acting childish, and they're destroying chemistry. The vets are publicly attacking a 19-year-old Colin Sexton, saying he can't play. And I quote, "It's becoming increasingly clear that when you hear a Cavs veteran talk about younger players not knowing their role, or knowing how to win, or what to do on the court, they mean Sexton. Throughout the organization, the line on Sexton is that he does not know how to play. He does not know how to defend the pick and roll. He does not know how to set up his teammates as a point guard. They know he's 19 and he only played 1 year of college ball. They still think he's a nice kid, but when they see his deficiencies, they know he's going to be on the court and they're discouraged after these losses. He doesn't seem to be bothered by them." Factor number 5. The cockiness and expectations is coming to bite them in the ass, as per Tristan Thompson. And this is, once again, direct quote. "We're still a 4-time Eastern Conference championship team. So until you take us down from that, teams ain't got much to say. Boston, Philly, they ain't got much to say. Boston had home court in Game 7 and they lost. Philly, those guys almost got swept. Toronto, we already know that story. So until somebody takes us down, there's not much that they can really say." Now, on the surface, this may appear as something that's pretty harmless and just a little poke at some teams that are emerging in the Eastern Conference. But it's a little bit more significant than that. Because after LeBron left, Cleveland was an afterthought and was a team that could potentially sneak up on other teams and get some cheap victories. But not after that. That's bulletin board material right there, which is a real smooth move there for a veteran such as yourself, Tristan Thompson. Factor number 6. They fired Tyronn Lue in less than 10 games. Probably for justification to tank, and the end result would probably be about 15 to 25 wins overall for the Cavs this season. And that's even with Kevin Love back. And then people will point to that as an indication of how strong LeBron's contributions were. But let's look at it from a different angle. What has LeBron's impact been in Los Angeles? The way that the Lakers system is running right now is the same way it ran in Cleveland and also ran in Miami. LeBron is a primary ball handler, and everybody around him needs to shoot or have the ability to shoot. Everyone's role around LeBron has shifted. If you can make a play, then go for it. But it will have to be done essentially individually. Other than that, just catch and shoot 3-pointers. For example, you have Ingram, Ball, and Kuzma. All of these guys have the potential to create offense. None of them are consistent catch and shoot guys. Next game, watch them and watch them all stand out there behind the perimeter waiting for something to happen, waiting for something to be spoon-fed to them, because that's their role when LeBron is on the floor. Now, when you watch the next Lakers game you watch, also compare the ball movement of this very same team, this very same ball club, when LeBron is off the court and Rondo is on the court. You would swear they are different teams. And there is a reason. This is the reason that the plus-minus stat for LeBron is so pathetic this season. And of course, it has a lot to do with his inability to play defense. There's not even an inability, which makes it even more inexcusable. Now, when LeBron leaves, you'll see the same train wreck in LA as you've seen in Cleveland. He does not make his teammates better, and it's becoming so painfully obvious. And once again, almost like clockwork, a very good coach in Luke Walton is copping the brunt of the criticism rather than LeBron, because it's never LeBron's fault, right? When will this guy ever take accountability for not even attempting to play defense, or now sabotaging his own team on the offensive end in the pursuit of statistical glory? This leads me to the next part of the debate that will never die. I've come to that conclusion. It will never end. And of course, that's Jordan versus LeBron. After pointing to the Cavs being woeful again, LeBron fans are quick to point out the Bulls that went from 57 wins to 55 when Jordan retired after the murder of his father. Once again, context. In 92, the Bulls have won 67 games and their second straight title. Jordan was the league MVP for the second straight season. He and Pippen were selected to the Dream Team, and they went to Spain to win the gold medal for the United States. The Bulls had to have felt fatigued at that point, especially their two stars, and they coasted to 57 wins, down from 67 the year prior. They still won the championship, and then Jordan retired. The Bulls brought in Tony Kukoc, Steve Kerr, and Longley, but no one really took them seriously, much like no one was taking Cleveland seriously. They were the defending champions, but by title only. Despite having Pippen and Horace Grant, they snuck up on teams and they overachieved. This also applied in the playoffs, where they pushed the Knicks to 7 games before being bounced in the second round. But the fact that Pippen and Grant and Armstrong played well without Jordan is a sign of Jordan's ability to get the best out of them. He toughened them up, and they produced. There wasn't any bad habits, they just played well. That to me is a sign of a great player. The next season, however, the Bulls were hovering around 500 before Jordan returned. And with his return, they won 13 out of their last 17 games. They upset the Hornets in the first round, but then they were dropped by the Magic in the second round. There was talk that maybe the Bulls might miss the playoffs entirely prior to Jordan returning. And when he did return, they instantly became contenders to make the finals in the Eastern Conference. That's the sign of a great player. how they make their teammates and their teams better, not the other way around. I mean, seriously, who comes up with this shit? It should be noted, however, that when LeBron went to Miami, they also added Bosh, who was a top 10 player in the league at that time, along with Wade, who was already Finals MVP and a champion. In Cleveland, tank season was in full effect, so the 21 or 22 win season was undervaluing their talent. And for those that say that the Cavs didn't even make the playoffs without LeBron before he came, how many playoff appearances did LeBron have in his first 2 seasons? Here's a hint. It was the same amount as Kyrie Irving had in his first 2 seasons. But if we're going to just look at the teams and how they fared after a star has left, and we're just going to look at the numbers, then let's do it. Jordan and the Bulls in 1998, 62 wins and the NBA championship. In the 99 season after Jordan retired, 21 wins. That's a 41 game differential. I mean, if that's all we're going to look at without the context, I'd challenge you to do better than that. Hell, I'll even do you one better. Jordan and the Wizards, when Jordan was 40 years old, they had 37 wins. The next season, they had 25 wins. And I thought the Wizards' run was a quote-unquote failure. If that's a failure, then what about LeBron? I can't even do that. But what's even more damning is Jordan's arrival in Washington. In 2001, the Wizards won 19 games. The next season, when Jordan was there at the age of 38 and 39, his birthday's in February, they won 37 games. That's an 18-game improvement. When LeBron went to Miami, they went from being a 47-win team to a 58-win team, plus they added Chris Bosh alongside LeBron. Now, if you want to talk about the playoff success and the Heat making it to the finals, then you also need to mention the fact that the Bulls went from being a three-peat champion in 91, 92, 93 to being bounced in the second round. Look, it's a double-edged sword, losers. It's a double-edged sword. And that's all I got time for today. Unfortunately, I've got to cut it short again. Episode 92 will be coming to you next week. Got a very busy weekend coming up. And look, I don't mind getting emails about LeBron, but I mean, I've already addressed this. It's a tired point, and quite honestly, it's flawed even when you hold it up to its own standards. So if you're going to come up with something for LeBron in the LeBron Jordan or the LeBron GOAT debate, please bring up something fresh and original that I can argue or that will actually challenge me to think, rather than, I'm not going to say it wasted my time, but I'm a bit annoyed that I have to address this because, as I said, 41 emails. 41! The season isn't even 41 days old, I don't think. 41! Please, something better, please. Anyway, guys, episode 92 will be coming to you, as I said, next week. And when that will be hitting, there will be only 8 episodes before episode 100. I'm excited. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for the emails, guys. I appreciate every single one of them. Take care.